Welcome back. We're going to continue with our checking collision here on our ball. So last video we created a bunch of different variables up here, and now we have to define them. So instead of putting in hard-coded numbers, we want the computer sort of to do the measurement for us. And so it's going to take a little bit of code. We're going to do that right at the start here, and there's going to be a bit of, overlap or sort of repetition here, but it should make a lot of sense. So first thing that we need to do, we defined, player paddle and paddle player, and paddle computer, but we need to be able to actually find them. Now we could drag them in, but again, it's sort of a better idea to have the computer find them. And so what I'm going to do is set paddle player to basically game object dot find. So it's going to find this in the game, and the one thing that we need to make sure, because it's like it says there, string name, we need to make sure what our player paddle is called. So let's just double check in Unity here, and we use the underscore, so player paddle, we'll need computer paddle as well. So just keep that in mind. So dot find player, and we did use the underscore. And then basically the other one, so computer player is equal to game object dot find, and then the same idea. So we're going to make that the computer paddle. Good. So now we've got references to those two game objects. And so what we're going to basically do next is take the measurements of them. Computer player, paddle. Some of you were yelling at me, I know. Okay, let me fix that up. Paddle computer, there we go. So that should fix that up. Perfect. Okay, so like I was saying, we need to calculate these measurements. So we're going to get the computer to measure it. We're not going to get our caliper out and measure it ourselves. We'll get the computer to do it. And you can actually measure these things through the sprite renderer. So the information about the height and the width are actually located in the sprite renderer. So what I'm going to do is player paddle height, which we defined up above, is going to be, so we're going to grab the paddle player, dot transform, dot get component, and the one that we're going to get is the sprite renderer. Make sure you spell that right. And then what we want is the sprite renderer, there we go, dot bounds, dot size, and since this is the height, we'll want the y. Okay, so that will be able to calculate the height. Basically, I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it again, because we're going to do almost the same thing, except we're going to do it with the width. Okay, so player paddle width, and then instead of the y-axis, because we're doing horizontally, we'll change that dot size dot x there. We need to do the same thing for the computer one, so I'm going to copy all those two lines, and then basically all I have to do here is change this into the computer paddle height and computer paddle width. Okay, and then just actually, we should change this to computer player also. And computer, just a second, why do I get it? Computer, what did we call it? Sorry, paddle. I kept doing this. Okay, sorry. So, paddle computer. And that's better. Paddle computer here. So I guess paddle. Got rid of the wrong one. Okay, good. So those two, should be able to measure out the size there. Now, the other thing, we need to do is do the same thing with the ball, basically. So the ball height, now just to show you the difference here, because this script is on the ball, we don't have to go through that process of player paddle, right, or paddle player. We can just do the transform dot get component, and grab the sprite renderer again. Okay, and then the same idea, dot bounds, dot size, dot, this is the height, so that's the y-axis. Okay, and then sprite renderer. Did that again. Interesting. Okay, and then I'm going to just go copy that because it's going to be basically the same for the width. Okay, so ball width. And once we've changed that up, we have to just make sure that we're grabbing the X there as well. Good. So now we've got all the measurements. And again, if it changed, you know, this would only monitor the change right at the beginning of the game. We'd have to, you know, if something was changed, we'd also have to re-measure it. But this script here will actually take all those measurements on our own. Now, the thing is to figure out where the paddle is on the X, you know, in terms of its width. So because the width should be relatively constant, we'll put it in here as well. The max Y and the min Y, that's going to have to be called more in the update function because that's going to be changing as we move our paddle. But the width should stay constant, and therefore the X position should be the same. So if you recall, we created these player paddle max X. Okay, so that should be the make sure I did that right. Player paddle min X, player paddle min Y, max X. So I think that's right. Let's just see here. What we're going to do, there we go, is again take the paddle player dot transform and its local position dot X. So this will find its center along the X axis. So it's sort of horizontal center. And if we're trying to figure out the max X, well, it's going to go a little bit more to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to add on that player paddle width, which we calculated above. Now the width is going to be its full width from the center to the to its sort of end. We have to take half of that because it's going to be basically, you know, half of it's going to be the right, half of it's going to be the left from the center to figure out its position of the X and, you know, its max X and its min X. So what we're going to do here is simply divide that by 2. Okay, so we're going from the center and adding half. Okay, now to do the min X, just going to grab that. We're just going to do the exact same thing, except we are going to subtract it. Okay, and make sure you change this to min X as well. Okay, so that gets the other side. So the center is there. To get the both sides, we have to either add half or subtract half. We're going to do this exact same thing for the the computer paddle. So I'm going to copy this and just make sure it changes here. And this is where it's important that you know, have consistency in your naming because it makes it much easier. So then computer paddle and I did that again, didn't I? As I say, how important it is to have consistency. And then, so the computer paddle, and then this one would be computer, paddle computer. Good. And just making sure these change as well. Okay. So once you've got these done, all the calculations should be fine. Now, we won't see anything here. I'm just going to save it, go back to Unity, make sure there's no problems. This error here is just because we don't have a return yet on the check collision. We have to get a Boolean out of it. It needs to say either it's going to be true or false. That code doesn't have anything there. That's why there's this error. Don't worry about that. We haven't worked on the check collision yet. So the code won't run, but the important thing is there's no errors in that start function or with any of our function definitions there. All right. I think we'll end this video here, just make it a short one, and then we'll get into dealing with the Y axis to check the position there. All right. So we'll see you in the next video.